So the next piece in the PowerPoint, after you get these two things done, right, where you've got a stepped value scale and a gradual value scale, and they're beautiful and shaded nice, and you didn't use your finger to push any of the graphite around, okay, because we talked about using your finger leaves oil on the paper, and then it's just gross, and we don't need all of that. So after you do that, the video asks you to make a ball or a sphere using a circle on the paper, and I don't have an actual sphere without patterns on it, so I'm going to use this as my sphere to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, it's like a stress ball. Usually I end up throwing it at things or people because that's interesting. Anyway, here's what happens. So when I'm talking to you about shadows, okay, and cast shadows and all of those things, here's what happens. When things come on top of other things, they leave shadows. So right now you can see where my hand leaves a shadow on the ball, and I can let light come through or leave or come and hit the ball. The ball does the same thing to the table. And it's hard to see because my table is black. But if I put a piece of white paper here, okay, you can see where when the ball is not there, there's nothing on the paper. It's completely white. But when I set that ball down, okay, there's a shadow that forms on the paper because the ball is blocking the light from hitting the paper. So what happens is when you go to draw this ball and I ask you to draw for me a cast shadow, okay, and cast is spelled like that, okay, cast shadow. This is what I'm looking for, is this piece of information that's on your table that happens when a ball is sitting on it, okay? And it looks funny because what happens is when I lift the ball up, you can see it's not an actual circle. Okay, so if I hold the paper up, it's kind of a weird shape. It's not going to be an exact circle. Usually it ends up being more like an ellipse than it does a circle. And so that's something you need to keep in mind. The ball was sitting like here, and it's a pretty big ball, like the perimeter of it was there, okay? And then this shadow is cast beneath it. The next thing I want you to notice, right, if I put that ball back and try to get it perfect again, okay, is that the shadow touches the side of the ball, okay? Comes out from the side of the ball. The shadow doesn't come out from like over here and do weird things and then come back around. Like it actually is touching the ball, okay? And it touches over here and over here, okay? And those are things you need to notice. Next, it talks about highlights, right? Highlights are where the light hits the ball the hardest. So like, for example, when we do girls, when we contour our faces, our highlights are like our cheekbones and our nose, things that are the farthest away from the shadows. The highlight for this is up here because my light source, my light in my kitchen is right above where the ball is. So this is where it's the strongest. Okay, and then it gets darker and darker and darker and darker and darker all the way as you go this direction. So how do we make that into a shape on the paper? I shall show you how. First, you need to, right, make a circle. Circles look easy when I make them because I've been making them for years and I understand the mechanics behind moving my hand in order to make one. So if it takes you more than one try, that's fine. Notice I go back and erase. Awesome, beautiful, we have a circle. Okay, next I need to decide where is my light coming from. So I'm going to have my light come from over here. So just to keep myself on track, where my light is, I'm going to draw a little sun. Beautiful. This is the sun. Okay, and the sun is hitting the ball this direction, which means my shadow is opposite that on the table. Okay, so my shadow comes out and does the shadow thing down here. If you have more than one light source, like in the classroom, we have lights that are like across the ceiling in rows, you might get more than one cast shadow. So there might be like a smaller one here that's less aggressive, and there might be another one here. Okay, but I'm just more interested in this main one that you can see for now. If you want to take up the challenge of getting all those other shadows, that will be beautiful. It will look more realistic. If not, you are fine doing just one. You just do one for now. Okay, again, I go in different directions to get my cross-hatching, soft shading. Then, what happens is my sun's hitting here. I have a highlight up here, and as I go right around that highlight, I'm going to start getting darker and darker and darker as I go down the ball this way towards my shadow, which is the darkest. So I'm going to come in here and lay in my darkest values first, because that makes my life easier later on. If I can come in here and put in these darker values around the edge of the ball, the places that are farthest away from the sun. In a perfect world, right, because the table is also reflective, there would be some little light here where the light bounced off the table and hit the ball. But again, that's a challenge. If you want to look for that highlight in that little piece of information, you can go ahead and try and get that. It will make your shading look richer, right, and the ball look more realistic, but you do not have to get that right now. I'm going to come in here, shading, shading, shading. Okay, you can see in some places where my pencil left like marks where you can see the value changed. So for me, the easiest way to fix that is to move my paper, come in, notice how far back my pencil is, right? My fingers are not up here like we do in math. My fingers are way back here. And if I come in a different direction, I can usually kind of smooth out some of that shading that left like tracks where I didn't shade as well as I'd hoped, which happens to everyone. Okay, didn't use my fingers. Okay, shaded completely. There's something everywhere. If it were a perfect world again, I'd come in here and erase that extra information from like the edge of the ball, the edge of that circle that I drew at the beginning, come in and kind of erase that out, because the ball itself does not have a line around it, right? The ball is white. We put a line around it because that makes it easier for us to do things with it, but there's not really one there. Okay, so you come in, you shade the ball, and now it looks beautiful.